There is a massive transfer of wealth happening right now. It is brutal. It is lightning fast, and the American media is completely blind to it. 1,110 new billionaires, 1.3 trillion yuan in core funding. So why is an economy that looks like it is collapsing producing more hardware billionaires than the United States? In March of this year, Chen Weiliang stands inside a factory in Shenzhen. He is not wearing a hoodie like a Silicon Valley billionaire. He stands in silence, watching an AI production line stamp out 5 million components a day in the dark. Chen's story is the nightmare America is trying to ignore. The American press keeps celebrating China's real estate crash and Jack Ma's disappearance. They call it a systemic collapse. But the reality is far more ruthless. This is not a malfunction. It is a deliberate purge. Beijing has intentionally choked off the consumer economy. It has squeezed capital out of social media and redirected it straight into core technology. Chen Weiliang and more than 1,000 men like him have captured that money. They are not building apps to sell ads. They are building dark factories. Those factories now control the hardware inside your electric vehicle. You will never know their faces, but their profit margins are helping decide inflation in America. Every time a consumer tycoon falls, a new physical AI billionaire rises. But for a giant manufacturing machine to run, it needs fuel. And in this case, the fuel is financial control. For more than a decade, capital in China flowed into the easiest places. The real estate bubble inflated the value of empty buildings. Food delivery platforms and short video apps pulled in tens of billions of dollars. It was a system built for fast profits, but hollow at its core. And Beijing chose to burst that bubble with its own hands. Not because of panic, not because of a policy mistake, because of a strategic mechanism called capital coercion. Once the doors to financial speculation were slammed shut by government punishment, capital had nowhere else to go. It was forced down the only path the state left open. That path was the 15th five-year plan, 1.3 trillion yuan. That is the official funding figure cited in a report from the Center for Strategic and International Studies. That money was poured directly into 6 core hardware pillars of the nation: advanced integrated circuits, intelligent robotics, new materials technology, and modern aerospace. The brutality of this campaign rerouted the entire economic ecosystem. Everyone knows Silicon Valley pulled venture capital out of Asia. The American financial press called that the ugly end of China's startup era. But what happened next proved the exact opposite: 0%. That is the share of American capital the newest generation of billionaires depends on. The exit of foreign money did not kill innovation. In reality, it triggered a nationwide blood cleansing. Reporting from the Wall Street Journal revealed the rise of a powerful new financial force. Thousands of government-guided funds appeared across provinces and cities. They fully replaced traditional foreign venture capital. State capital is now taking the risk directly in place of private investors. These funds do not need companies rushing to list on the New York Stock Exchange. They only need founders to successfully build core chips. That violent reallocation of capital explains the rise of these unknown billionaires. A fully self-contained and self-reliant financial ecosystem has already been built. The money is in the system, but idle capital cannot threaten American supply chains. Last year, Chen Weiliang's robotics company was completely cut off by American investors. Instead of accepting bankruptcy, he got a call from the local government. A state-backed guidance fund handed him what was essentially a nearly unlimited check. In return, Chen had to use that money for one purpose: removing human beings from the manufacturing process. Welcome to the age of dark factory dominance. Forget the old image of thousands of garment workers sweating under fluorescent lights. Industrial reporting from supply chain experts confirms the explosive rise of unmanned manufacturing. Chen Weiliang's assembly lines are coordinated entirely by artificial intelligence. They run 24 hours a day in silence. No lights required, no overtime wages. Machines never go on strike. They never ask for sick leave. China is driving marginal labor costs straight towards zero. Scaling industry is no longer a labor problem. It is now a software and electricity problem. The entire idea of cheap human labor as a competitive edge is officially obsolete. But intelligent robot arms cannot survive on their own in empty space. The industrial map of Shenzhen is a dense web of interconnected workshops. 10,000 component suppliers are packed inside a radius of just 50 miles. That is the defensive power of ecosystem density. A deep analysis from Harvard Business Review exposed a lethal technology gap. In the United States, the average time it takes to turn a design drawing into a working prototype can stretch to 6 months. In China's hyper-fast manufacturing hubs, the same process takes only 2 weeks. If a crankshaft cluster in Chen's production line fails, the supplier is only 3 blocks away. They can melt metal, machine a replacement, and deliver it that same afternoon. America cannot copy that miracle just by pouring concrete and building factories. This geographic density creates a nearly unbreakable defensive shield around China's hardware supply chains. But we should not mistake this for a flawless machine. How bad is the corruption created by these mountains of money? The waste is happening on a scale that is staggering and almost impossible to control. The history of China's National Semiconductor Fund is filled with reports of fraudulent projects. Dozens of senior officials have been arrested for burning taxpayer money on ghost factories. American economists often use those failures to mock the state-led model, but they make a critical mistake. They do not understand that waste is not a bug in the system. It is one of the features, not because the economy is perfect, but because scale absorbs the errors. With budgets worth trillions of dollars, the government can afford to let thousands of startups fail. It only needs a success rate of 5% to reshape the world. And that surviving 5% created 18 new semiconductor billionaires in a single year. The companies that made it through the purge now command destructive manufacturing power. They are ready to crush competitors with prices so low they look irrational. There is a brutal paradox. America keeps reading completely wrong. Economic analysts constantly warn about China's demographic time bomb. They believe an aging population and a shrinking labor force will choke the economy. Cheap labor was Beijing's dominant advantage for decades. The loss of millions of workers was supposed to trigger a full collapse. But reality delivered something very different. Labor scarcity did not kill China's industrial hubs. It became the survival pressure that forced China to automate a full decade earlier than expected. This economy is not searching for a new pool of cheap workers. It is building an unlimited production force out of metal and code. A fatal weakness has been turned into an absolute competitive advantage, and the money printing power of those automated systems is now landing a direct blow on America. Across the deserts of the United States, giant steel factory shells are rising from the ground, but inside them, there is often empty space and silence. The US government has tried to bring supply chains home through the CHIPS Act. Tens of billions of taxpayer dollars have already been released to build hardware infrastructure. Foreign direct investment is surging across industrial states, but America is running into a wall that no subsidy can break through. Analysis from Emerging Strategy exposes a deadly labor gap. U.S. manufacturing is facing a shortfall of 1.9 million core workers. America may succeed in building the concrete shells of these mega factories, but it cannot find enough engineers and skilled workers to run the lines inside them. The education and training system cannot move fast enough to match the speed of construction. And when billion-dollar factories fall behind schedule, operating costs immediately start eating through every profit margin. The skills crisis is the bottleneck that cannot be removed in the short term. Washington is trying to fight a tireless machine system with flesh and blood labor. That gap in cost and scale creates a trajectory that may be impossible to reverse. Chen Weiliang does not need his name stamped on the electric vehicle you drive. He does not need to care about American industrial policy. In a world ruled by profit margins, his automated system will help set global prices. A robotic arm assembled in America may carry tens of thousands of dollars in labor costs. A similar unit coming out of a dark factory in Shenzhen may cost only a quarter as much. That gap cannot be closed with government subsidies. Any hardware startup in America faces a brutal choice. It must import components from Beijing's ecosystem just to preserve thin margins. Or it must try to manufacture on its own at 3 times the cost and burn through its capital. American consumers will feel that pressure in everyday prices. Jobs at newly built factories in the US will remain under constant threat from ultra-cheap Asian competition. China is moving toward exporting a massive wave of deflation to the rest of the world. It is forcing the physical economy to operate on prices set by artificial intelligence. If Washington keeps using tariffs to hide a shortage of millions of workers, it will become a trap. The United States could get stuck in a long cycle of persistent domestic inflation. Expensive American labor will produce hardware that nobody outside the country wants to buy. Multinational corporations will be forced to split their supply chains into 2 completely separate halves. One expensive half for North America, one ultra-cheap half for the rest of the planet. But if China's ability to export deflation pushes past the absolute floor of marginal profitability, the balance changes again. Every tariff wall America builds could shatter against prices that are simply too low. Small businesses will start finding ways around the rules just to get the components they need. At unfinished ports across Southeast Asia and South America, automated cranes have already started moving, and the language printed on their control panels is not English. That may be the most important power variable Americans still refuse to watch. The developing world has no obligation to protect American industry. It has only one priority: growth. Fast growth. Better living standards. They need roads, bridges, smart ports, and power grids built at the lowest possible cost. If Beijing's hardware standards deliver that outcome with near zero labor costs, those countries will choose them. Chinese technology firms are exporting the entire dark factory ecosystem to the global south. They are building telecom networks and renewable energy infrastructure in countries that were once aligned with America. That technology leak will permanently lock in supply chain control over billions of people. Markets will naturally tilt toward whoever delivers real value and faster deployment. Unless America can use its software advantage to optimize physical automation technology, the United States is still the world's leading power in artificial intelligence and algorithmic models. But that is a dangerous bet on timing and real-world execution. Teaching software to write text is not the same thing as teaching it to run a metal casting line. Chen Weiliang does not read American headlines. He watches machines repeat movements with precision measured in microns. The era of expansion built on cheap labor is over. The conquest of the world through physical AI has only just begun. The outcome will depend on one thing: who removes humans from the production line faster? What do you do when your rival's operating cost is effectively zero? Have you correctly identified the enemy?